Welcome back to Vetted with Jan Wagman, the show where we spotlight the issues that matter to the veteran and military communities and air the voices behind real change, from the battlefield to the front lines of advocacy. I'm your host, Jan Wagman, and today's episode is about recovery, not just from war, but from the slow damage of carrying too much for too long. It's also about one man's extraordinary 30-year military career, one that spanned continents, commands, and chapters of American military history, and how he's now using that same experience to help others find their way forward. But before I introduce our guest, I want to set the stage. Across the country, tens of thousands of veterans are living with what we've come to call invisible wounds. Things like traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, moral injury, chronic pain, and substance abuse, often stacked on top of each other, often untreated for years. These aren't rare exceptions. They are common consequences of prolonged service in war zones or of high-tempo operations in places the public rarely sees. Yet, for far too many, the systems meant to help have been slow, under-resourced, or inaccessible. Discharge status, geographic isolation, or even stigma keeps warriors from seeking or receiving the care they desperately need. This is where the Avalon Action Alliance comes in. Founded by philanthropist and Home Depot co-founder Bernie Marcus, Avalon is a private, nonprofit initiative aimed at one thing: closing the care gap for warriors and first responders with TBI, PTSD, and substance abuse injuries. Through a national network of specialized centers, Avalon offers evidence-based, integrative, and barrier-free treatment without the red tape, without the denials, and without the stigma. These aren't just clinics, they're sanctuaries. Avalon's partners include Warrior's Heart in Texas and Virginia, offering inpatient recovery for addiction, trauma, and brain injury in a peer-led environment. The Share Military Initiative at the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, a nationally recognized program for treating TBI and PTS in post-9/11 veterans. And of course, today's focal point, the Marcus Institute for Brain Health, located at the University of Colorado's Anschutz Medical Campus in Aurora, Colorado. The Marcus Institute was created in 2017 through a $38 million gift from Bernie Marcus. It stands as a bold response to a long-ignored reality that many veterans with mild to moderate TBI go untreated, misdiagnosed, or dismissed. The Marcus Institute offers them a new path through an intensive 3-week outpatient program that combines traditional medicine with holistic therapies: physical and occupational therapy, speech-language pathology, behavioral health, mindfulness training, yoga, canine and equine-assisted therapy, and more. But perhaps what makes the Marcus Institute truly revolutionary is who they accept. There are no restrictions based on discharge status. Veterans with other than honorable or even bad conduct discharges, many of whom were separated due to symptoms of the very injuries they now suffer from, are welcomed here. And it's not just lip service. Treatment is provided regardless of insurance or ability to pay. This is the kind of care system so many have waited for. And our guest today knows exactly what that wait can feel like. Scott Rice was born and raised in rural Missouri. In 1996, straight out of high school, he enlisted in the United States Army as a military intelligence soldier. His first assignment took him to Fort Hood, and then to Southwest Asia, where he deployed in support of Operations Southern Watch and Desert Fox. That first deployment would set the tone for the rest of his career: high stakes, high intensity, and unrelenting. Over the next 3 decades, Scott would serve in Kosovo, Egypt, Iraq, and across the globe. He would climb the ranks to sergeant major, leading operational units within one of the Department of Defense's most elite special mission elements. He became a trusted recruiter and a senior career manager at Army Human Resources Command, overseeing the careers of thousands of soldiers. He lived at the intersection of high performance and high pressure. And like so many warriors in these spaces, he didn't slow down until he had to. After retiring from the Army, Scott began what he calls the next mission, facing the toll these years had taken on his mind and body. Like many of his peers, he struggled with chronic pain, substance abuse, PTSD, and the cumulative effect of traumatic brain injury. And like so many warriors before him, he had to learn to fight again, this time for himself. He underwent extensive treatment through multiple Avalon partner programs, Warriors Heart in Texas and Virginia, and the Share Military Initiative in Atlanta. Then he walked through the doors of the Marcus Institute for Brain Health. But this time, he wasn't just a patient. He became part of the team. Today, Scott works at the Marcus Institute in peer support and outreach, helping other warriors find their way toward healing. He brings with him the full weight of his experience, his empathy, and his credibility because he's lived it. And now he's using it to help others take that first brave step toward recovery. I first met Scott and his Marcus Institute colleagues over Memorial Day weekend this year at the Veterans Talking to Veterans Resource Fair in Du Bois, Wyoming. And I interviewed him about the Marcus Institute and his experiences then. A few weeks ago, I ran into them again at the Warrior Games in Colorado Springs. And Scott shared with me that when I interviewed him that first time, he had only recently separated from the military and been officially employed by the Marcus Institute the week prior. A lot had changed since that first week on the job, so we set up a new time to talk. Whether you're a veteran, a caregiver, or someone who loves someone in uniform, this conversation is for you. It's about trauma, yes, but also about transformation. It's about what real support looks like, and it's about what happens when warriors stop surviving and start healing. Let's get into it. Hi, Scott. It's nice to
Hi.
see you again. How are you?
Yes, great to see you again too, and I'm doing fabulous.
Well, so this is a continuation, actually. So we saw each other again recently at the Warrior Games in Colorado Springs. This was July 17th through, I think I was there longer than you were. I know my lungs are still recovering, both from screaming and the deficiency of oxygen.
Sure, yeah, it's a game changer when you come out to elevation.
It is. I was not prepared, and next time I do something like that, whether it's out west or anywhere, I need to train like I train for a marathon because it was very, very difficult. But it was really good to see you out there, and I learned a lot more when I met you there with your colleagues about what it is that you do, and a lot has changed for you personally since we met in Wyoming at the Veterans Talking to Veterans Resource Fair. So I wanted to meet back up with you today and get an update and find out what you've been doing and then sort of expand upon what it is that the Marcus Brain Institute is and talk a little bit more about the Avalon Action Alliance, the parent company, and then the other modalities that are involved with that.
It is an absolute pleasure to do this with you again, Jennifer.
Since you and I met in Wyoming, what has changed for you with the organization?
Not a lot of change, a lot of growth on my part, and just education. When we met over Memorial Day, like I was fresh. I'd only been there for um, really about a week, I think,
Oh, okay.
before I got up there. So I'd done my internship here, so I had a fairly familiar, but definitely have a much better understanding of my role and the clinic's role in addressing TBI. Um, so really, what's changed in the last couple of months is my own education and growth within this role.
Okay. And so what is it that the Marcus Brain Institute does? What do you do in your role?
I am employed on paper as a peer support specialist, not a counselor, because I haven't been through any formal training or anything like that. Although I am leaning into that direction and looking at coaching certificates. And I'm going to finish my master's in social work as well. First of all, we're 100% philanthropic funded outside of billing insurance and things like that. So with that said, there's a lot of cost that goes into treating these individuals. For the actual evaluation, it's north of $40,000 for that 3-week treatment. And so I say all that to say that all of us in our organization are fundraisers.
Okay.
So everybody has that as an additional duty, which is probably just as important as their actual duties.
That's amazing, actually. What is the fundraising aspect of it?
We try to go to every event, just like you do, where there's going to be veterans and first responders as well. So we try to be out there. For if someone's hosting something for vets, we're there if we can. And I mean, just really rely on family, friends, other organizations that we've built up relationships with, and we help them, they help us. It's a lot of work to maintain bringing folks to this 3 weeks of treatment at the cost that it is.
I'd like to interrupt you because I make a personal public service announcement. I'm not the only one who goes to family, friends, and my network for donations. We all do it, right? In the veteran space and first responders, because it's the way we work. So I don't feel so bad when I hear you doing it as well. Well, so you told me earlier that there are 6 other institutes. Am I correct? Or
Yeah, 6 total. We're
6
one of those
total.
6. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
That falls under the umbrella of the TBI modality for the Avalon Action Alliance.
Yes, 100%.
And so you have 6 TBI institutes or programs, would that be a better way of saying it, that work with TBI patients, and that's across the country. You said
Yep.
Philadelphia, North Carolina, Atlanta, Wisconsin, and Florida?
Yeah, Jacksonville,
And then where you are, which is,
Aurora, Colorado.
I hope to be back in Colorado in January. I think there's a Student Veterans uh, Association. That's where their big national conference is.
And I feel so blessed that I was able to get this job out of retirement. The location to me is just fabulous. I've never had a more pleasant summer than I've had this year.
It is quite beautiful out there, that is for sure. Okay, and so then the other 2 modalities that we talked about, Warrior's Heart and Warrior Path, those 2 fall under there. And that's what I found to be very interesting that we hadn't talked about in Wyoming was how big this is. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The Marcus Institute for Brain Health falls under the Avalon Action Alliance, which is a veteran support organization that I personally feel is fairly underrepresented because they're absolutely doing the Lord's work in 3 primary domains. One is going to be TBI, second one being substance abuse, and then PTSD. But Avalon has kind of reframed PTSD. We've seen this in other organizations too. They dropped the D for disorder and replaced it with the G for growth. All 3 of these different programs are absolutely top notch. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here today if I hadn't been a patient client, however you want to phrase that. So they have the Warriors Heart facilities, both in Texas and Virginia. If you've never heard of those, I highly encourage you to Google that. They've done a 60 Minutes interview on them and things like that. So there's a lot of information out there. But they primarily work on substance abuse and PTSD to a lesser extent, but it is a part of it. It is a 42-day inpatient treatment facility. I liked it so much I went twice. That's actually true. It didn't stick for me the first time. I went to Texas, and then I went to Virginia the second time, where basically my trip to Texas set the conditions for me to be successful in Virginia.
That's because Virginia is the greatest state.
I've spent a lot of time living in Virginia for my career. Anyway, so that's the substance abuse piece. And then we've got the TBI piece, which is what I'm heavily involved in now. My clinic, again, being the Marcus Institute for Brain Health, but we have 5 other clinics scattered out throughout the United States. They are kind of patients are somewhat regionally aligned to those clinics, like where their home of record is. But it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So we could see somebody from Hawaii, Alaska, Florida, even though there's a clinic in Florida. It's just about availability and timing. So the third modality of Avalon Action Alliance is the foundation that created it is Boulder Crest, but they have a program called Warrior Path, and it focuses on post traumatic growth versus post traumatic stress disorder. I have not been to it. Um, I plan to, but I have visited a couple of their campuses, and the things that I see going on there, it's just blown my mind. And the people that graduate from it, I've talked to well over 50 individuals that have been through this program, and they say it transformed their life. So I don't have that experience yet, but I hope to. But those are the three main modalities within Avalon Action Alliance.
What is post traumatic growth?
It's bringing folks together, ideally around transition from service. But we have people that go through it that have been out of service for 30 years. I know that they have their facilities are generally on like almost like a campus type or a ranch. Um, they're there for 7 days. They do deep PTSD work with the mindset of growing from that trauma. So post traumatic growth versus post traumatic disorder. Um, Again, I've not been through it, but everything that I've heard, it's changing lives.
Yeah, it seems to be sort of the new thing to focus on and really a positive change in this.
Honestly, Jen, it would be my strongest recommendation for you to do a piece on that
Okay.
on Warrior Path.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
would be huge.
All right. So now, can you what was your service? I don't remember if I asked you this before.
I served 29 years in the Army. Again, I just retired on May 1st of 2025. My background is intelligence and special operations, mostly special operations since about 2008.
So let me ask you this: when you go to the fairs, the resource fair, the Warrior Games, what is your favorite part about interacting with, whether it's veterans at the things like the veterans talking to veterans resource fair or Warrior Games, which is something way different? What's your favorite part of that?
My favorite part is when I share this information with somebody, and it sounds bad, but when they break down in tears because they found that this exists, because nobody knows about it. Like I'll just use an example. I have, and I'm not, don't mean to disparage anybody, but um, we had somebody whose spouse had fairly significant TBI, definitely more into the moderate versus mild. He'd been seeing some specialists that are very close aligned and should know about us for sure. And I'm telling this spouse this information, and she literally breaks down, and she was just like, I'm literally within a mile of that for treatment for my husband all the time. And I've never heard of this. Like, how does that happen? So that's what I get to enjoy. That's my fulfillment when I'm able to say there is something out there for you, even though you've already given up. Like, we can help.
Is the work that you do different from treatment they would receive at VA?
It's a great question that we should absolutely have an answer for at any time it's asked, and I don't have the answer.
Maybe you can
Find
provide.
out.
Yeah, find out, and I
Because I
can.
would like somebody to tell me that, like in like official capacity, to say this is how we're different. I don't know that.
Yeah, get that to me because I can get that out. Here's why I ask also because at Warrior Games, I don't know if you had an opportunity. I think you told me you were going to head over to the Healing Hut,
Yeah.
and you saw then over there were various different modalities that were available, and I had the opportunity to volunteer and take part in that with Fisher House. all week long, and I'm going to continue to be a part of that as we move forward over the years. I mean, I was blown away by everything, and um, the work that's being done there. There'll be a whole separate podcast on that. Um, but Dr. Stephanie Shaver is the one who started that, and she started that after the death of one of her
Yeah.
flight nurses, because there were alternative treatments that were available for TMJ, and the pain that that nurse was experiencing that ultimately caused her
Yeah.
to take her life, that was a wake up call. So that's what leads me to my question for you, which is I sing the praises of the medical capabilities of VA. This isn't a slam on them, but we can't do everything. We can't rely on VA for everything, but we can pull together outside of as organizations and things, and then work with VA. Um, and this is one of those times where I would say, okay, is there something that you're doing in events like this, and possibly, you know, making it available outside of Warrior Games or Invictus Games, those types of capabilities because of the need that's being brought. These sorts of events, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention, and that is what she's doing. I imagine that's what your organization is doing as well. TBI is something that is creating this need. I have one, I know, and the little thing that happened to me and the disruption in my life that it has caused is so profound that it has made me a better advocate, has made me much more compassionate and understanding, because I do not know how people go through what you've gone through and live your lives.
Yeah. So that's a lot.
Yes, of course, because you know I talk too much.
Well, no, that's not true. One is the healing hut. Let's just start there. That is a monster. Like, so my boss, who's a retired brigadier general, she's got some connections, is really good friends with Dr. Schaefer. So she directed me to take my butt over to the healing hut because I was having a lot of, I've had back issues for a long, long time, but it was a particularly bad day. And I can't even tell you that all the treatments that I got, because I was a little bit overwhelmed, because it was like I stepped into a science fiction movie and then all these bodies
I know.
with like covers over the, it was just weird. And they use a lot of acronyms, so I can't talk to their technology that well. But some red light stuff, they reset my vagal nerve. They
Me
did,
too, me too.
and like, did it make you feel kind of giddy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I
I got
felt.
to
I was
work there
like,
every day. Yeah. The salt therapy. Yeah. Uh-huh.
so a lot of it was a lot of new age therapies that I don't really have know the science behind, but that model, like
It's phenomenal.
yeah, I don't know how you recreate it on a large scale, but I'm sure they'll figure it out.
I'm gonna help them.
That would be so cool. So there's that. A lot of times I don't think that we give enough credit with pain and suicide. I've had my over my fair share of suicides in and around family and friends and service members, and I had a hard conversation with my father just a few weeks ago where he admitted to me, he's like, I almost took my own life because of my back pain. And he was able to get that fixed, and obviously he didn't commit suicide, but um, that's very, very real. And I don't think people think about that as nearly as much as they should. TBI is, I mean, that's an easy thing to say. It's not an easy thing to say, but yeah, we know you have it, and this is how we can make your life better. When it comes to pain, sometimes people get to the point where they've tried everything. So yeah, anyway, it's just a really, really sensitive subject for me. And so yeah, anything we can do to relieve pain.
Well, I think it's such a subjective thing, that you're right. It tends to get written off. And you know, people feel sorry for you. People or doctors, even doctors, they empathize, or they think they're empathizing, but we can't give you any more drugs. I don't know if it's the You need to suck it up, or you need to do this there. But then at the end of the day, you're the one who has to go home and lay in bed with it or be with it. And I identified with Holly because I understand TMJ very well. My grandfather had TMJ, and it drove him crazy at the end of his life. And it is something that is not understood. And I've seen it with my clients, on VA examiners, um, contract examiners. A lot of the time, I've looked at this by people who are not trained to understand the specialty of what it is, and what that pain is, and actually what is going on with that joint and how it ties into migraines and neurology. And I I can understand how that pain, and how she felt like that was it. It was never going to get better, and nobody understood. So yes, I understand. I appreciate everything you're doing. I think that we could probably have a whole nother podcast, as I've said.
Again, I'm just a peer support specialist, right? So like I know what the guys are going through and the gals are going through, but I don't know the science behind
You're
it.
a whole different person than you were when I interviewed you in May. You were so serious and so, like, nervous. I mean,
I
you
was
were demeanor back then to where you are now is like a whole different. You were like you know who you reminded me of back then was a, what do you call those guys who, protect the president?
Secret Service.
Yes, that's who you are. You that's what you reminded me of back then. The Secret
Well,
Service agent.
I've led a pretty intense career, so that kind of explains that. But I am finding peace in my new civilian life,
Okay.
and I'm finding
You seem much happier.
I find I am completely fulfilled in what I'm doing every day.
Well,
That's
good.
probably has something to do with it, and
That's
that's
good.
not a nervous ball of energy 100% of the time.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and for all the information you've shared. And I think it would be amazing to, um, get together and join with some of the other, organizations, and share more information in the future. I think it would be really helpful to bring to the audience some. So I appreciate your time, and again spending this afternoon with you. I wish you all the best in your future work with the institute.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for having me on. And I honestly I hate doing this stuff because I'm terrible at it, and I don't even want to see it. But if it helps one person, it's worth it, and that goes for everybody in our clinic. I mean, people could be doing other things, making a lot more money doing them, but the fulfillment they get out of helping these veterans and first responders every day is um, it's extraordinary.
It is. It is. Well, you're not as bad as you think you are. You're not. You're really not. All right. Well, until the next time.